I am very happy to have you on my show, on my podcast.
Cool.
I had this great conversation with Jay Cutler in June of this year, and super nice guy. I don't know if you've ever met him, but he's one of the coolest, nicest, most humble guys.
Yeah.
And, I knew him as this big bodybuilder, and I'm not into bodybuilding, although I can relate to physical journey, having lost 150 pounds, right? But never taking it to the level that he's done. But we were talking, and he was saying, wow, your story is so inspirational. Mm-hmm. You should talk about it.
Yeah.
You should write a book. You should communicate. I think you can help a lot of people. And I was like, you're right. I should start talking about this.
Sure.
I should talk about a lot of things, So that's what kind of inspired me to do this health and happiness journey. And I wanted to have, really great people on the show. And I wanted my favorite people to be on the show. And you're one of my favorite people.
Awesome.
So this is Michael Coleman. He is a very good friend, but he's also my mentor in the insurance and finance space. And actually, we have been working together now almost a decade.
Almost a decade, yeah.
Almost a decade. I think we got started in 2015. I was remembering this one thing that I just thought was so funny. So I think you remember this. This was I don't know how many years ago this was now. This was 4 or 5 years ago,
sure.
right? And I was the top qualifier for this trip to go get, personal coaching with Rich Thawley at the top of the Transamerica Tower, Transamerica building in San Francisco. And I packed all my stuff. And in the morning when I opened up my suitcase, I realized that I forgot to pack a pair of pants.
Yeah.
I literally had no pants. And we had to go to the top of the Transamerica Pyramid building in San Francisco. And the only thing I had were these ratty black pajama pants. And I had my top was great. I had a red suit jacket. My makeup was done. My hair was good. I had earrings and jewelry. And I remember having to sit in the front row while he's talking, Rich Thawley. And I'm sitting there oh my gosh, this guy's a billionaire. And I want to make a good impression and I don't want to embarrass myself. And I'm sitting there just hoping that he will not look below the waist at all. And I remember sitting in the front row, and it was really funny because, I was in a line and he shook my hand and he didn't even look down and he said, "Red's a great color for you." And I was sitting there does he know I'm wearing ratty black pajama pants?
Oh my God, that's funny.
But the funniest part of the story was that within days, you were on Facebook and you got a YouTube video or some type of video, which was how to turn a t-shirt into pants. And you were when would I ever need to, and then you sent it to me and you're this is the one scenario that this may have come in handy.
Exactly.
You could have turned a shirt into pants.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
But it made me think about all of the funny, interesting things that have happened in this business and on our journey together. And even just starting off and just going for it and not knowing what I was doing, and just the funny things the terminology that I didn't have right, and all the funny things that have happened over the years. So anyway, that came to mind this morning, and I just thought it was really funny.
Yeah.
I was just I don't even know. I was I feel like a knucklehead sometimes, and I'm if I can do it, anyone can do it.
Yeah. No, I think that, looking back over the years, it's kind of funny because, we all start off at different levels and have different, sort of layers of experience. And working with you, I think that, and this is kind of valuable in terms of coachability, I guess, is that it was always okay, well, what do I need to do? Great, I'll just do what you tell me to do. And it was that level of coachability was really awesome, and it was all right, Zoe, I'm going to challenge you to do, to win this contest. And then you would just go win it and ask, you didn't ask how, you just said, okay, I'm just going to do it. And then you just figured it out, point by point. But it was always hilarious because you would do things say things I'm going to, when you get someone to sort of purchase something, and they're part of the team, I'm going to internally consume them. And I was Zoe, that sounds so weird. That's hilarious. But anyways, it's pretty funny.
I remember my first challenges and really thinking in my own head when I was given them, I have no idea how I'm going to do this, but I guess I just got to do this. And I really remember having this idea that like just everyone does it. And so that idea that it's just something that everyone does and not that it was hard necessarily, just because I didn't know how to do it.
Yeah.
I do remember like sometimes just like feeling like I was banging my head against the wall and crying to myself, like, this is so hard, but I would just keep going, you know? And I think that is a pretty good lesson for people sometimes. I think we were just talking about this the other day. It's like people think that they're constantly underestimating the time and effort or what it's going to actually take to get them where they need to go. And I have started noticing this, and it's just in really any business. It applies not to just to ours, but I think so many people just give up too soon.
Sure.
In almost everything.
Yeah.
You know, and I think that would apply to health and wellness, and that also applies to getting wealthy.
Sure.
Right? I keep finding these similarities, and I think this business taught me a lot about making money, saving money, investing money, having a wealthy mindset versus a poor mindset.
Sure.
And I think being able to take that and then turn that around on myself physically and my health was a huge thing, because I actually realized it's the same thing.
Yeah.
It's just in a different area.
Yeah.
You know, like you can't expect your diet to work if you're only on it for a couple weeks. Also, if you only, you know, stay on a savings plan for months or a year or something, it's not really going to do much for you.
Right.
Versus if you do something habitually and adopt it year after year after year. So I wanted to ask you kind of like, for you, what do you feel your biggest, I guess, obstacles or barriers were in your own journey building your business and as an entrepreneur?
To me, early on in my career, it was I was pretty uncommitted for the first few months. I didn't really understand that I'd started my own business, so to speak. You know, I was kind of like going, oh, I want to get some financial literacy and I got to get my own house in order. And, you know, and I really enjoyed going to these classes and just kind of getting an education, you know, and that was really what I had started. And somewhere in the back of my mind was like, oh yeah, it'd be cool to make $1 million and it would be cool to, you know, sort of be successful. And there's these ideas of financial independence that are, to be honest with you, I mean, when you're in the workaday world, sort of the 9-to-5 grind, that is very much a foreign concept, you know, because you're every day it's the same thing over and over and over and over again. And so for me as an entrepreneur coming in, it was just sort of like, you know, the non-committal sort of being a dilettante approach to it was one of the things that was a huge barrier, but it was really easily overcome when I realized, like, wait a second, I'm cutting myself short, you know, in that I should be fully committed, you know, to my goals and dreams. And if I do that and I stay focused on that and I stay focused on helping people, then that keeps me on course and it keeps me aligned with the right principles. It should be really difficult to fail as long as you stay in alignment with those two things. And so, I found that it was pretty simple to like overcome and really what it was to look at what's the next step that I have to take that's going to move me closer to my goals. And so I always had this approach where it was like, I'm going to look at what's the long-term goal and what's the short-term next step that I have to do. So that would give me discipline and focus for execution of the next thing, and then vision, hope, and like excitement and enthusiasm for attaining the long-term goal. And I think by keeping both of those things in my mind on a constant basis, it was really helpful for me to be able to sort of get past those perceived weaknesses early on and then kind of catapult into, you know, sort of a successful, modestly successful early on in my career approach.
So you're one of the most like level-headed, even almost like manages emotions so well. Like I can't even tell when you're upset or mad half the time, like ever.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if you've ever cracked once in the entire time that I've known you, almost 10 years now. Is it truly like that for you, or are you just really good at like correcting your emotions internally so they're not seen, or have you really just reached a state that you are just very, very solid and things don't affect you?
I think that part of it is like being pretty empathetic with people. You know, I'll give you an example. When I used to work in the advertising world, and before that I was in the technology sector. And I remember there was a period of time where I had to go and present to Hewlett Packard. And I was really not excited about this meeting. And what had happened, I was a low-level research assistant, basically, you know. And so the CEO of the company comes in and says, hey, we're going to Cupertino and we're going to do a presentation to HP. And I was like, great, good luck. If you need some notes, I'll send them over to you. Like, just let me know what you need to know and whatever. And he said, no. He goes, we're bringing you as one of the presenters. And I died inside. I was like, what are you talking about? They said, yeah, you're going to go to a multi-billion-dollar corporation, to their home office, their campus, you know, and you're going to present to their, you know, board of directors for internet services, you know, like all of this stuff that is going to get our technology into their computers. And I was like, you're kidding, right? Like, this is some sort of joke. And they were like, no, you're going to go. And I said, so I didn't sleep for over a week, and I was researching. I tried to figure out all the questions that these guys would possibly have during my presentation, and it was a terrifying experience. I mean, at that time I was only 25 years old, and I had to go like give this presentation. And my boss said, he goes, listen, if you land this, I mean, this is going to be like a $50 or $100 million deal. I don't remember what it was, but he goes, if you land this, it's going to be huge for our company. If you screw this up, all of us are homeless. And I was like, great, no pressure. I was like, great, that's okay. I'll do it, right? And so I didn't sleep. I researched, and I just had all these things that I was thinking about. So we arrived to the campus of HP, and like they're touring us around, and like, oh, and then in that building they do this, and then they do that building, it's hardware development, and that building is software integration, that building is internet services, one of these little golf carts driving around this place. And we get to this thing, and I walk in, and I'm like terrified. I'm terrified that I'm going to have to do this presentation. We go in there, and this guy, you know, who was one of the, you know, very top people in there, and remember, this is 25 years ago, we sit down, and he looks at me, and I go through my presentation, and this is the guy that we have to impress, and he goes, does your hardware solution, you know, does it have internet access? And I was like, it's an internet, it's a modem. So yes, it has, that's exactly what it is. And he looks at me and goes, okay. And he gave me this look that will forever be burned into my mind. Like, I just got caught. Like, I don't know what I'm doing. This guy who's in charge of all of the internet services for this humongous multi-billion-dollar company was like, I have no clue what I'm doing. Like, I'm collecting a humongous paycheck, and I have no idea what's going on. And I realized that when I saw that this glimmer of terror on this guy's face, that he has to make some decision for this multi-billion-dollar company, and he doesn't know what he's doing, and he's asking me stupid questions. I was like, oh my gosh, everybody's terrified. Like, everybody's walking around in sheer terror that people are going to start asking them questions that they don't know the answers to. And I sat there and I was like, whew. So you're telling me that everybody feels the same way I do pretty much all the time. And for some reason, that was so calming that I could just go into every meeting just going, I know that most of the people that are in here are as terrified as I once was, and it put my mind at ease to where I just didn't have to stress out, because I knew at the other side they were thinking what I was thinking about them. And I was like, I don't really care about you. I mean, I care about you. I love you as a person. I want you to survive and do well. But there's no reason for me to get worked up and get worried or get angry or whatever. I just always have the idea that the solution will present itself. Like whatever's the big challenge, whatever's going to be I know that there's a way to solve it. Like I give an example of like there's a concept of like there's a $1 billion version of you. Like there's a version of you that 12 months from now is a billionaire, and you would have to make a certain number of decisions. You'd have to, zig and zag at just the right moments. You have to meet the right people. But there arrives for every single one of us, sort of in the multiverse or alternate reality, a version of you that is a billionaire 12 months from now. The question is whether you're willing to take that journey and take the steps and move in that path that's going to move you in that direction. And hey, what if you were going in that direction and then all of a sudden you were like, oh, I'm going to stop at like 100 million, or I'm going to stop at 50 million. Would you be a lot further than you were, as someone who's like has a job and is kind of broke, and you bust it out and actually move towards those goals and say, I found a comfortable spot. And so I just kind of find that, that if I just sort of think about, okay, well, what's going to solve that for me, and always think, okay, I'm a $1 billion, like there's a $1 billion version of me, and I have to act consistently, to fulfill that picture of myself, then it totally puts my mind at ease. So no, I think that I am relatively level-headed, and I when I said empathy early on, I feel like I see that most people are having their own internal struggles, and if I just go, and I know how you feel, and I've been there before, and let's work through this together, it puts me at ease because I know that I can help them, kind of find the next step. And it also takes, when you're helping other people, it takes your mind off of yourself. And so I always just stay focused on helping others, so then I don't worry about myself, if that makes sense.
You had this like Avatar I see you moment with like extreme belief in every single person.
Yeah.
You look at them and they have this potential inside of them. And so you just like have this full understanding for all of their bullshit, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're just like going to try to push them to be great.
Well, it's hilarious because like Cash, Cash,
Yeah.
and he's like, he goes, I believe in people, but Michael Coleman, he really believes in people. And he goes, and he sometimes believes in people that I think that maybe you shouldn't believe in that person, and I always thought that was funny because I see that no matter what people's backgrounds are, where they come from, like I can see that if they made everybody has in their control, this is what I feel is like one of our great God-given gifts is the power of choice, and every day we're given, it's like, do you go to the gym, or do you eat a friggin' chocolate cake? Do you discipline yourself in the area of like, your marriage and relationships, or do you get distracted by, I don't know, video games and messing around? Like there's all of these different types of things where you have to make these decisions. And I know that if you make the right decisions the majority of the time, nobody's perfect. You're not going to make the right decisions 100% of the time. But if you're constantly going, you know what, today I'm going to make the right decisions. And then the next day you get up and today I'm going to make the right decisions. And you string enough of those days together that, you're going to be pretty good. And so since I know that everybody has that power, it becomes more difficult for me to see folks as failures when I know that every single person on this earth inherently is given the power of choice that, and it's really up to them, And so I look at it that, we're all responsible for whatever plight we are living, whatever condition we're in. Whenever you start blaming other people for the situation that you're in, it weakens you tremendously, And so for me, I'm like, if I am in a situation that I don't like, or if I'm, like if there's something going on in my life that that rubs me the wrong way, I look internal to myself of how to fix it, not external of that it's someone else's fault that I'm in that situation, if that makes sense.
Biggest superpower we have is the ability to decide.
Correct. I totally agree.
It's crazy because it's one of these things that could change in a moment.
Yep.
In a literal moment, you could change everything.
Yeah.
You could move from one direction to another and do a complete 180.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Absolutely. And you see it all the time, which is why, like with your example, I almost, you're real public about it and you kind of, show the pictures and stuff like that. Like the first time that we had sort of gone to the company incentive trip to Hawaii, I was like, you showed me the pictures of that first trip. And I was like, there's no way. Like to me, I've always just seen you as you, does that make sense? Yeah. I did. So I look at those pictures, I was like, and now you just went through this journey to make your physical appearance more consistent with who you really are. But I always saw you as that person. So it was kind of like, oh, that physical form wasn't consistent with the Zoe that I know.
It's weird looking at a 320-pound 5'3" on a good day picture, right?
Sure.
And then looking at it now, that's crazy.
Totally.
Yeah. I look back on that too, and I didn't even see myself that way.
Yeah. And I think that that's part of it too, is like, our own perception of ourselves is how we see ourselves. I think that men have like women on one end of the spectrum, like they have a tendency to be overcritical and guys tend to be undercritical, which is, I think that's what makes us what we are, is that we kind of like, I'm looking pretty good. It's like totally out of shape and, need to work out more. But it's like we see the pluses, more so than the minuses, I think. So
what's the biggest barrier you feel that you had to overcome in your business? I've
always felt like I saw a finish line and I was like, I'm gonna get there at some point or another. Like whatever the vision I have for myself, I'm gonna get there. It may take me a year, it may take me 2 years, it may take me 5 years, 10 years, whatever. I just knew that every day I was gonna get up and walk, or run or whatever I had the capacity to move towards that goal every day. I think that's what happened like early on in my career, is that I had, there was some times of doubt, and so I think that having people around me that believed in me as well, like being able to borrow the belief, I think that that's the greatest gift that mentors and leaders can give to the folks that they're helping, is to lend them the belief, lend people the belief. And I had, friends of mine like Jamie Villalobos was really instrumental. Ed Milet, we had a wonderful conversation early on in my career where he was just like, I had all this soul crushing doubt. And people don't think, like they look at me, he doesn't have any doubt at all. But it was just like, I got into a funk. I got into a mental funk. And I was like, dang it. I don't know, what do I do now? You know what I mean? And I was making a lot of money. My organization was very, very successful. We had a lot of hope. And it was just, I had this sort of, this sort of chip on my shoulder, this like crushing weight that just, I don't know where it was. I mean, I've since obviously handled that significantly, but a big part of it was when I sat with Ed and he just said, you know what? Yes, you're $1 million guy and everybody knows it but you. I was like, wait a second, everybody knows it? And he's like, everybody knows it. And I was like, wait, what? How does that work, And so all of a sudden I felt like I was the odd man out for not believing in myself, And so from that point forward, like that one literally, it was literally a 3-minute, 180-second conversation with Ed, and it completely moved me in a totally different direction from that point forward. And then at that point, I mean, there was a couple of spots where, I just, maybe second guessed or whatever, but that soul crushing doubt was pretty much dead once you realize that you have other people that are believing in you. My wife, Heather, she believes in me incredibly. My mom, Vicky, she's also believes in me. So you have all of these people that are constantly surrounding you. That does definitely make it easier. And this is why I tell people, it's like, look, manage your associations. If someone is not moving in the same direction as you, it's like, you don't have to sit there and be like, I condemn you. I'll never talk to you again. You just kind of like, I'm going to just move in a different direction. And you just move in the direction where you have less resistance. I think that's a winning formula. So.
Confidence seems to be a thing that a lot of people battle with.
Yeah.
I mean, even the most confident people I've met truly struggle with confidence. they're just kind of projecting it.
Yeah.
I think it does work, though. I think if you have enough people that believe in you and you put it there yourself, you eventually get there.
Yeah.
I can relate to a lot of what you said because, I mean, you've talked me off the ledge a couple times.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been emotional and dramatic for short periods, even when I was doing really well.
Yeah.
You know, for all intents and purposes. I think you also will have your own idea of where you should be already. And if you know you're not really at your potential, you know, that can be kind of hard.
Yeah.
Or you know you're not doing everything you're supposed to be doing or that you feel you should. And it really just comes down to that, you know. But in the end, I like the mentality, like the non-victim mentality.
Sure.
I think that's what it takes, you know?
Yeah. Well, I think that, you know, once you go down the road again of being a victim, you know, whereby, and you know, and it's like people have legitimate challenges. I'm willing to concede that. But I think that once you go down the road of like having your own condition be dictated by others, and I said this earlier, is that it diminishes your power tremendously. Once you go down that road, then what happens is it's easier and easier to relinquish that power. You know, then it becomes the point where it's like, okay, well, that, you know, I'm a failure because of my boss. You know, my boss is keeping me down, or I'm caught in a relationship where, you know, it's like I don't get a chance to be able to really shine as myself, or I'm, you know, I'm in a band where like, you know, everyone else is bringing me down, or I've got people around me that are bringing me down. As soon as you concede that that is the case and it diminishes your power, the next time you're put in that position, you diminish more power until the point where it's just like I now own the identity of a victim, and then that's my MO. That's the mode that I operate under. And so once you're in that mode, it's very difficult to get out, you know. And so I think that it's that's why our associations are so important, is because you want people that challenge you and that encourage you and that lift you up and that they believe in you, because it's so much easier to, you know, is it in Pretty Woman? It's so much easier to believe the bad stuff, you know? Like that was, I'm paraphrasing that. I should probably know that. I've seen it 10 million times with my wife. But that's, you know, she says it's easier to believe the bad stuff. And I think that that's true in life, you know, is that it's just easier to believe the bad stuff.
Yeah, I think once you get there, your mindset is so off. I actually spotted something that I was doing early on. And this was when I was working jobs, starting this business part-time, because I really was working my job through the entire first year that I was starting this business from nothing, right? And I remember working at least a good 7 or 8 months not making a single dime in this business, right? Which is a common thing for any startup, really, right? Yeah. And I caught myself saying, I don't have enough time. Mm-hmm. I don't have enough time. I'm so busy. There's no time. And as soon as I just decided to change that, and every time I noticed that I was saying that, I would change it in my mind. I was like, I have a ton of time. Yeah. There's no excuse or whatever, and just disagree constantly, even if it really seemed like I didn't have any time.
Correct.
Like there were only 24 hours in a day.
Correct.
And I have to sleep at least 4 or 5 of them. Yeah. You know? Something really shifted for me, because as soon as I disagreed with my I don't have enough time, then I disagreed every time that someone else brought that up. Mm. And so even to this day, and now we're like almost a decade in, right? Yeah. I still, when someone says that, I actually will, if it seems like it's the right time, I'll take them aside later. But I'm like, you need to train your way of thinking. Like every time you say that, you're just pushing it in harder. Right. You're just going more and more into agreement with the fact that this can't be done. Right. And that's not going to get you anywhere, right? And so, you know, I mean, there's so many, like, you know, Lao Tzu said, like, you know, time is a created thing, or, you know, to say you don't have time is to just say you don't care enough or something like that. I mean, there's a lot of different quotes on this, but that was like a huge thing. And I actually found that really useful. Yeah. And I'm constantly like nicely reminding reminding my guys every time they say that to change it.
Sure.
Because I think that's a huge thing that people go into agreement with when they're trying to start a new business. Like, they are stuck. They have to make the income that they're making to survive. They're in a 9-to-5, or they have a much longer hour job.
Yeah.
Or maybe they're working 3 jobs like I was.
Yeah.
Right? And then trying to start a business on top of that. And you're like, well, what's the difference between that guy who makes it happen and the guy who doesn't? The guy who makes it happen just makes it happen.
Sure.
They just do it.
Yeah.
Right? There isn't anything else. You just do it. Right? That actually reminds me of that great A.L. Williams speech that I actually, got to see in one of your trainings. This is early on, years and years ago.
Yeah.
But that's a great video on
Just do it,
YouTube.
yeah.
A.L. Williams, Just Do It.
Yeah.
He's got the greatest accent in the world. It's such a good. I think there's like a shortened version that's like 9 minutes, and then there's a long version that's almost 30 minutes.
Yeah.
But I was like, wow, I feel like that should be in like every company or business training.
I totally agree.
Just do it.
Yeah, no, and that was, and again, I think that, managing your own, way of thinking is very important. And I totally agree. I find myself, like, this is one of the reasons why, especially in generally conversationally, when I'm in public with a lot of people, I'm a lot less likely to talk, and I'm a lot more likely to like be sort of reserved and listen, because I really do feel like once you start saying things like, I don't have enough time, or I don't have enough money, what you're doing is you're just sort of like self-actualizing those types of things. You say those things, and the next thing you know, you don't have enough money, and then it's something that just perpetuates over and over and over again. And so that's why I am very wary about saying things like if someone says, hey, can you do a public speaking engagement, or can you help talk to my team, or can you do this meeting? I very rarely, unless it's like a huge conflict schedule-wise, I very rarely say no, because every time that I have an opportunity to say yes to something like that, it opens the door to a whole new world of possibilities. And that's what I'm always looking for, is like, okay, I do have abundance. I do have, all the time that I need. I do have, an abundance of money that flows to me freely and frequently, and it's just like, these were the thoughts that, sort of put me in a position. And by the way, this is something that I really like feel very strongly about. So I've had friends of mine that have been like, it takes so much effort. It's so difficult. It's like you have to pay the price, and you have to, and to a certain degree that's true. But at the same time, is it really is it really that difficult?
It really is a mindset thing, right?
Like,
because even if it is, like, if you train yourself to not, you actually have helped me a lot with this, because I've had trouble with it, but it's like, enjoy the process, Zoe.
100%.
Like, no, I'm suffering the whole time.
Exactly.
I'm like, literally want to slit my wrist. Not really. I'm not truly suicidal here, but I'm just saying, like, it's so like, and you've helped me, like, relax, enjoy the process.
Yes.
This is part of the journey.
Yeah.
There's good here.
Yeah, exactly.
You're doing good. You make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Calm down. Like, there are people that are actually like in really bad positions right now,
Totally.
and you are very good.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's all perspective, right?
Absolutely.
But I guess we all have our own problems from our perspective.
Yeah.
So you built like a multiple 7-figure business basically, and you've been doing this a good, 15, 20 years now?
Yeah.
15, 20 years. So what's your goal now? What's your game? Like, what's important to you? What drives you?
Well, in doing what we do is that we help people, you know, and across the boards, if you look at it, there's sort of two facets of it. One is on sort of the customer side, the client side, and the other side is, helping people to become entrepreneurs within, our industry and so forth. And so to me, I just look at it is that there's always someone else that needs to be helped. I think about the fact that my mom and dad, no one ever helped them. No one ever reached out to them. It wasn't until, the awesome people that we work with here and our mentors, Jamie and Sean and Dana, they were the ones that sat down with my folks to be able to help put them on a path and help them to, to get their house in order. And I'd never seen that. And so to me, I thought, man, my folks, they're not even in a horribly bad situation. It's like they're just kind of middle income, middle class, middle income family, that just kind of got in over their head in debt. And I thought, if my mom and dad are just like the average or maybe a little above average, think about, the tens of millions of people that are worse off than them, and then the tens of millions of people that are better off than them trying to stay from being, worse off than them. My parents kind of represent that middle line. I'm thinking, like, there's millions of people to help. So really it comes from the fact that the job isn't done. Does that make sense? It's like if there's more people to be helped, then I've decided that this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life. This is what I'm going to do is I'm just going to help people to be able to succeed and win at the level that they can have, at the level that is acceptable to them. And if I can lighten their load or help them to see the path a little bit more clearly, then why wouldn't I want to do that for my whole life? So to say what's next, it's not like, oh, I'm going to retire or something like that. I think when you're in the business of doing good works for others, there is no retirement. It should be something that you strive to do for your entire life, all the way, until they're, what Art Williams says, patting you in the face with the shovel. It's like that's the way that we should approach things, is find things that are fulfilling to us that help others, and if you wind up winning along the way, hey, all the power to you.
I think that's what actually initially attracted me to this business, because I felt actually ruined in my life. Like, I didn't have a specific passion.
Sure.
Like, I was always really jealous of people that were like, I'm a ballerina. Yeah. I must only dance, or a painter. And they had a very specific passion, or an actor or something like that. And I remember just looking at my life and being like, I don't have anything that I feel like one single thing that I'm super passionate about.
Sure.
But when I really took a look at it, I'm like, okay, what is the basic purpose that like every human being could agree upon that we all have, is like to help another person.
Sure.
So I think what attracted me to this business was that ability to help people in an area that was, from the counseling background, like sex, relationships, and money and finance all day long, right? So to be able to make an impact, that really starts with education. Yeah. It's a really easy place to make a major impact, and it also requires such a light touch.
Sure.
You can make such a big difference with the smallest change. Yeah. The smallest amount of help. So, that made me think of that when you were talking about it.
Yeah, I think that literacy is a huge thing. I mean, just being able to, people always ask me, it's like, well, where do I start? Like, how do I start just becoming a better, version of myself? And I was like, well, you know what? I think that, you should read some books, that are going to put you in a good position to like start to challenge the way that you think, and, and all that kind of stuff. So. Yeah.
So you started this group, Coleman Nation. Yeah. And that's on Instagram. Yeah. So people can find you on Instagram, Coleman Nation.
At the Coleman Nation.
At the Coleman Nation. Yeah. Tell me about the Coleman Nation. What was your thought in putting this together, and what was the purpose of it?
Well, basically, obviously my name is Michael Coleman, and, and I thought, oh, wow, Coleman Nation, that's like an actual word, it's like the pinnacle of something, and so I thought, oh, that's kind of a cool play on words. But then I started to really think about it as like, I wanted to be able to help people be the best versions of themselves. And so initially, it's like, I don't want to get into things that are, like politics and whatnot, like stuff that people have varying viewpoints on, and so when I started, my podcast and some of the stuff that I'm, putting out on social media and whatnot, is like, I just wanted to be able to get people to think, to get people to start asking the right questions of themselves. It's like, I've obviously, gone on my own sort of, journey of spirituality and fulfillment and all those types of things, and just doing my best to be the best, human being that I can be. And I feel like, I've run across some ideas and my own personal thoughts about how we can sort of raise the collective, sort of, raise the average of humanity across the boards. And that's really what it was. So it's just kind of going to be, similar to this, just kind of open forum, just me sort of like, from time to time, interviews, but talking head types of stuff, just my ideas for the day, things now that we have a new daughter, like what are some of the messages?
Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you. She's
very exciting.
She's adorable. And
how old is she now?
She's 8 weeks.
8 weeks.
Yeah,
incredible.
8.5 weeks. Yeah.
Yeah, what a journey.
I know. And so then I want to be able to have stuff where it's like, that she could look up to and she could go, oh, this is what my dad was thinking back then, like obviously I want to be around for a long time and whatnot, but just to be able to influence things in a positive direction. And I think that it really, really takes every single one of us being able to exercise, the most powerful tool that we have is our reason, our ability to make choices, to evaluate the situation and move in the right direction. And if I can help people to understand a little bit better about themselves, that's really what the whole point of the channel is. So.
Well, you definitely helped me.
Cool.
And I'm happy to have you as one of my first guests on this show.
I'm excited to be here with you, and congratulations. I think that this is awesome. I think that your presence and your story are valuable to society. I think that you are a person that's worth looking up to, and on many, many fronts, both the physical journey and the business success and being a mom and just like all of these different aspects. I've admired you a lot over the years, and I think that this is a really great direction for you.
I appreciate that. Thank you for being on my podcast.
You're welcome.